Thank you all for having me, and what a joy it is to be. I just love your energy. It feeds me, and really it's what feeds our party. So I want you to give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, I'm going to be short and sweet, and I don't know that I can match my lofty title of your part in saving our republic. First I want to give a quiz question. What was printed on the side of the buses when we were at Iwo Jima? Does anybody remember? They had all the Marine buses parked around the side. Earned? Yep.
Earned, never given.
Earned, never given. Right. And did you think about what that means? To me, that was a very powerful three-word statement, earned, not given. And that's really the mandate you have as TARs and as activists. Freedom is earned, not given. And the way I'm going to do my little remarks tonight is I'm kind of a crazy gal, and I have a lot of passions. And TARs and the Republican Party and freedom and our Constitution, which I work in the courts to defend, are some of my passions. So I'm going to use my passions you'll get to know me real well in just a minute. But hopefully when you see some of these things, maybe you'll remember a little nugget of wisdom that you learned this week, that you've learned from each other. I've been most impressed with how you are networking with each other. And what they've been telling you is true. Many of my former TARs from my period working here are congressmen and senators and mayors and governors and judges and justices. So this is really the launch of your long-term political career, and I encourage you all to keep in touch and keep building your network. Very important. So one of my favorite things in the world is Ronald Reagan. And it was my great privilege while I worked at TARS to meet him 3 times in person. And very great privilege and honor, thanks to Barbie. And so Ronald Reagan, everybody should have passions. And politics should just be one part of the equation. Because honestly, I think that's what keeps you young, and it's what keeps you going, and it's what makes life memorable. So Ronald Reagan, you probably know this quote, but I really want you to think about it. This came from our great leader. Freedom is never more than 1 generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on to them for them to do the same. So that's that earned, not given. And you're at a really critical role because you are going to be the leaders that are going to protect it for your generation. And one thing I want to ask of everybody in this room, much like your counselors have done, they went through TARS and they're coming back and helping Barbie, helping the national organization, helping in their states, and they're giving back. And I really hope that you all will resolve on this last night of TLC that you're going to be a TAR in your heart forever. And that means you're going to keep in touch with Barbie and with the TAR staff. And when you're capable, when you're in your great earning jobs, you're going to give some money back. You're going to help Barbie volunteer. You know, maybe you'll have a business that you could help underwrite some things. I really want you to think about that, and I want you to claim that. Because to me, I'm always going to be a TAR in my heart. And I think if more and more of you, if you really think about that and make that commitment tonight, much like your counselors have, they're continuing their commitment. That's why TARS works. Beyond the spark plug, that's Barbie. So I just want to say something about Barbie real quick, because Barbie's one of my favorite things. My 12 and a half years at TARS was truly the foundational basis of my entire professional and political career. And it was the greatest launch I could have ever had. And I've gone on to raise about $110 million for some very important causes that help save freedom for this country. But it's all the credit goes to Barbie and to the TAR experience that I had. And that's why I remain a TAR in my heart, dedicated to it. So, you know the axiom, lead, follow, or get out of the way. I love that. I say that at work all the time, by the way. Are you leading? Are you following? Or are you getting out of the way? Just by you being here and by you being engaged at TARS at your local, state, and now national levels, you're showing all of us that you are engaged and you understand how precious our country, our republic is. So when you go to do an activity, sometimes they're not fun. I mean, walking a precinct, sometimes in weather like this, if you're out there doing Burma shaves or, you know, leafleting, whatever you're doing, sometimes it's arduous and tedious. Just when you find yourself, if you start to get down or cynical about it, just try to remember, what are you doing? It's earned, never given, and why are you doing it? You're doing it to save America. So one of my favorite movies is The Wizard of Oz. I hope most of you have seen it. It is a classic. They do play it at Thanksgiving. And one of my favorite lines of that movie is when Judy Garland, as Dorothy, clicks her red shiny slippers, which I don't know if any of you saw at the Smithsonian, but they are there, and she goes, "There's no place like home." So why do I pick that as something for you to think about? How many of you have traveled outside of the country at least once? Well, a fair number of you, about half. Okay. If you have not traveled outside the country, this is a pledge I want you to make to yourself, that by the time you're 25, you have visited at least one other country. And that could be Canada or Mexico, it doesn't matter. But I think that you truly cannot understand America until you have gone to any other country and then come back. And I think it's that perspective that's so important for you to understand, why are we trying to, what is so great about America and why are we trying to save our republic? It has been my great blessing, one of my great blessings of my life. I've been to over 40 countries. And some of them have been really tough, and some of them have been really poor, and I've been arrested in several of them. Truly, truly. And the consulate officers, they've gotten to know me well. Apparently I'm in a computer with like red stars or something. So when they have to call and a consular officer has to come to bail me out of jail, and then they don't like when I won't leave, because sometimes I'm in there for principle. And when I was in an East German jail, I would not leave, and the ambassador was getting very nervous. And I said, I will leave when the man who had the swastika up comes and apologizes to me for the blood on his hands. And then I will leave. And they went and they got him, and he apologized. And being a Christian, I did accept his apology, and then I left. And they asked me never to come back. But I made my principled stand for freedom. And I know from the people I was staying with in that small town in Germany that it's still talked about today. And there are no more public displays of swastikas in that town. So, you know, you can do a lot in every day of your life. I mean, just in the little things. In fact, I think that's what's the most important things. So travel, because that gives you perspective. Now, another one of my obsessions, the Titanic. Has everybody seen the Leonardo DiCaprio movie? You know what I'm talking about? Oh, not as many. Well, you need to get out and get to Redbox and rent that. I'm a life member of the Titanic Historical Society, and next April is the 100th anniversary of the Titanic tragedy. And I have traveled, I have seen every Titanic museum that exists in the world. I met the last survivor, Lavinia Dean. She passed away earlier this year. It was my great privilege and honor to meet her. And the reason, if you haven't seen the movie, it's okay, but it does tell the essential story. And the reason I want you to think about that is, you hear these words a lot today, too big to fail. Isn't that what you're hearing about TARP and all the different financial issues that have led us to our financial crisis today? And it was too big to fail. Well, the Titanic was the too big to fail of its time. And it was the largest ship ever built at that time. It was unsinkable. It had the best engineers in the world, and it was on its maiden voyage on April 14th, 1912. And of course, what did it do? Hit the iceberg, you know, went under, tore in half, and 1,507 people lost their lives. So I think the lesson from that is, first of all, nothing is ever too big not to fail, and it's important that you chart your course. You have to seize control, and you need to make a plan for your life. And if that plan is getting an internship, Barbie Tars, I will help any of you. You need to make a plan. Titanic. And over the next few months, because of the 100th anniversary, trust me, you'll be seeing a lot of little TV specials. And so I want you to just remember, there's a lot of lessons. Pay attention to the ice warnings. Captain E.J. Smith did not have a plan in place. They didn't have enough lifeboats. So this is how a metaphor for how you can plan for your life. Another thing I'm obsessed with is Shakespeare. I do not believe that the glove maker, known as William Shakespeare, was actually the great writer of the plays, but that's a different speech. There's a movie, by the way, coming out called Anonymous, that's about Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, who I think is the real Shakespeare. But, all right, Shakespeare, famous quote, "To thine own self be true." Who knows what play that's from? Anybody? Any English majors? Close, Hamlet. All right, "To thine own self be true." Well, what does that mean? Why would that apply? Read, read, read. Educate yourself. Know what you believe and why. How many people in this room have read the Quran?
The whole thing?
A good chunk of it to understand what the surahs are. And, okay. How many of you have completely read your constitutions? Federalist Papers? Saul Alinsky's Rules for Activists, which is the Bible of this White House. Okay. Any Marx, Lenin, Mao? Okay, well, okay, there's room for improvement in this group. Okay. The reason I tell you to do that is I win pretty much every public debate that I've ever been in because I have educated myself. And I usually know their points better than they know them themselves. And by educating yourself and truly being informed and understanding what both sides of the equation are, that's how then you can be more effective and have more impact in presenting what you believe and marketing what you believe. Another one of my favorite writers, and I'm a life member of this society too, is the Jane Austen. You know, Pride and Prejudice. I'm sure at least, hopefully, some of you in this room have either seen that movie or read the books. Oh, good, okay. Well, Jane Austen has a famous quote, and this encapsulates a lot of my viewpoints. It says, "Let other pens dwell on the guilt and the misery." And I like that because Jane Austen was essentially a very positive and optimistic writer. And her characters are very positive and lively and optimistic. And people are drawn, that's why Ronald Reagan was such a tremendous success. They're drawn to people who have positive energy, positive vision, can extemporate a positive message and a positive mission. And in order for the Republican Party and conservatives and our principles to roar back, we need to be, yes, sometimes we need to be the party of no when we vote things down, but we need to be the party of yes in presenting a message and a vision. And I think that's a real challenge. I think that's where the Republican Party is right now. It's gotten party of no, and that can be messaged in a good way, but I don't think we're balancing that with what we're offering. What's the positive? What would Jane Austen do? What would she offer that would bring people in and they would be, then engage deeper? So be positive. One of the great highlights of my career, it was a real honor, is President Bush nominated me to represent our country on an official State Department trade delegation. And I got to go to Mongolia, the most exotic of the 40 countries I've been to, for a 3-week period. And I got to really travel the country and meet the leaders and meet the people and shoot a gazelle and ride a camel and eat marmot and yak. It was my great privilege to meet President Elbadorij. He's the first democratically elected president of that country, and he is the 80th generation grandson of Genghis Khan. So what a privilege and what an honor, A, to be asked to represent your country, and B, to meet someone of that stature. And he, of course, is quite a student of his 80th generation grandfather. And in being there, I found out that Genghis Khan conquered more land mass on the earth than any human being in history. And this was back in about the year 1200. And when you contemplate the types of weapons and transportation they had at that time, well, when you study him, there's something that comes through in every battle. He was outnumbered in every battle that he fought. Yet he conquered and literally ruled more of the Earth's landmass than ever in history. It's never been matched since. And what he did is he worked smart. And he came up with creative strategies because he didn't have the numbers. He didn't have the force, but he prevailed. So when you were mounting a campaign, think about that, because sometimes you are going to be outnumbered, and you are going to be, the other side's going to have more troops on the ground, they're going to have more money. You know what? Nothing is impossible. It's your duty to work smart, come up with a creative strategy, and you too can defeat your enemies. The other thing that's that I've learned about Genghis Khan is, above all traits, he was asked by one of his 3 sons, they said, "Father," it's a great little proverb they tell in Mongolia, what is the trait that you prize the most? And the one son said, "Is it courage, courage in battle?" And the other son said, No, it's, being the strongest, because in that culture, sort of your physical being is a very, very important thing. And the third son said, well, I actually think loyalty is the most important in building an organization. And Genghis Khan prized loyalty. And I think that's a great lesson to learn. And he was loyal to his people. He engendered an organization where they were loyal to him and to each other. So when you see pictures of Genghis Khan, or you hear about Mongolia, I want you to think about that. And he made sure that everybody had a job, and that everybody felt important. And that's how they were able to outwork and outsmart so many of their enemies. How many people have seen the movie E.T.? And, oh, good, okay. One of my favorite lines, I actually have a little E.T. It's scary, he talks and he moves. It's one of my favorite things. When I'm really down, I just go push my E.T. button and he talks to me. But my favorite, it's true, I love him. I'm allergic to animals, so that's like my pet. So I love this message, E.T. phone home. I mean, I just love that. And what's the lesson for us in that? Communication is the key. And this is the other challenge, I'll put it, or opportunity that I think the Republican Party, the conservatives, and we have as activists. I think that is the other piece of the puzzle that we need to make up ground for. And the creativity that I have seen just in the few nights I've been with you all this week, I mean, you guys have some great ideas. You have energy, you're on top of this new medium. I really think it's going to be your generation that's going to resolve this ongoing challenge that as a party and a movement we have had. Reagan was our last great communicator. And I think if we're going to prevail and save our republic and put our principles into action, it's that communication, it's that marketing key. Some of my favorite things, Mickey Mouse, because I'm a Disney freak, green M&Ms, Diet Coke, and Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. When I say those things, you instantly get an image, right? You instantly get an image. It's a brand. It's something you can identify with. And it's part of this communications challenge. Every tar club, doesn't matter if you're 6 people or 60 people, you can get a real bang and impact in your community if you brand yourself. Come up with a logo or a slogan, sorry. Logo and slogan. But do it, and I'm telling you, people will start to notice you. Maybe you make a t-shirt, and on one side you've got some really creative logo, and on the back you've got a slogan. And you wear it to all the campaign events, it's got TARS on it, but then and when you're speaking to the press and when you're talking to party leaders, start to distinguish yourself. Get an image, get a brand. The left are genius. That's the Saul Alinsky Rules for the Revolution, which you should read and master. But they know how to make a positive image and communicate it. So I really want you all, I really believe your generation is going to be the one that's going to resolve this for our party. But you need to commit to it. Open ground for you, especially vis-a-vis new media, social networking, the internet. I mean, the world's your oyster, guys. So this is a challenge I'm directing in this room, because I think you can really save and change this country and help our party the most by getting creative and having an impact in that area. One of my favorite singers of all time is Elvis. I'm a little bit of an Elvis freak. And one of my favorite songs of Elvis is Don't Be Cruel. Well, what can we learn from that song? Don't be cruel. And you're seeing this happening even within our primary, our presidential primary right now. I think that it's really a shame when you attack someone on personal characteristics, personal issues. There is enough wrong with this country and enough challenges just based on the strict policies that I think you need to be aware. Don't sink to that level. Maybe that's just my personal preference, but I think as a party, if we can take the high road, don't be cruel. You know, you can have an honest disagreement with someone strictly on facts and you know, strict policy approaches, but try to remember that. Don't be cruel. Another one of my big obsessions, Princess Diana. And you all are aware who she was, right? I know you're younger than, but I'm really obsessed with her. It's scary, but you know, she had this famous saying that said, "I want to be queen of people's hearts." Have you heard, any of you heard that? She was known as the queen of people's hearts. And I think the lesson, which I touched on in the beginning when I told you to please make a commitment and commit back to TARS, is it's important for Republicans and conservatives and activists. We need to give back. And I think that often our compassionate conservatism, they don't see that. And with programs like Wounded Warrior and some of the great community service projects that TARS are doing, keep doing them, add on, do more, and then let your community know. If you've got those great shirts with your logo and your slogan, they're going to see you at the food drive, visiting, you know, the Senior Citizen Center, you know, doing Wounded Warrior and supporting their veterans. And I really think this is an opportunity that we really need to do more of, and then make sure that we're there's this communication piece, remember ET, you know, and then let people know, yes, we want to make our neighborhood better, our city, our state, our region, our country. But you have to be doing the work. And frankly, the most rewarding things I do are the things I volunteer for. And I think you will find the greatest joys of your life are found when you do give back. Okay, I'm going to read a lyric, and then we're going to see who can tell me who wrote this lyric. Ready? I'm almost done. Ready? Don't give up, because you have friends. Don't give up, you're not beaten yet. Don't give up, I know you can make it good. Don't give up, because I believe there's a place where we belong. Anybody? Anybody? Lady Gaga. So, lady, I'm telling you. But do you know what she based that on? I did a little research on the internet. She based that on Winston Churchill. Now, wasn't that a delightful surprise? Because it was Winston Churchill who said, never, 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 never give up. And she based the lyrics to that on Winston Churchill. See, it's that don't be cruel and looking for the positive in things. So you see, I can make it all fit together. So, about 10 years before you all were born, there was a movie made, and if you've never seen it, you can rent it. It was called Red Dawn. Does anybody in this room? Oh, you do know. And do you remember the group, the Wolverines? Okay, if the rest of you have not seen the movie, it took place in a high school in Colorado, students sitting around having class in the middle of a beautiful day, and this is during the Cold War, it's set during the Cold War, and then all of a sudden, red parachutes just start falling on the schoolyard, and America gets attacked by the Russians. This is back during the Cold War. And these students are able to go out back doors, and they go up into the mountains with the families' cabins, and they basically ignite the counter-revolution, the resistance to this communist takeover. And it's one of my favorite movies, and I really encourage you, Red Dawn, if you have not seen it. But I love the spirit of the Wolverines. And back in my tar era, a lot of the tar clubs adopted that because it was a very popular movie at the time, a lot of the young stars of the time, and it was sort of, people knew the Wolverines. And that's sort of part of that messaging and imaging. So, as I go to close, I'm going to tell you my new favorite movie and my new favorite little image from it, and maybe some of you will be able to do something with this. But as you know, we are in a crisis. We are in 3 wars, maybe soon to be 4. There is a global jihad against our way of life. Maybe afterwards, if you want to find out about the September 11th terrorists that live next door to me, who I loaned binoculars to because he told me he was bird watching when he was actually tracking the plane tail numbers that flew over the Pentagon, so they would know which plane to take to kill 237 people. But I'm telling you, I'm a direct person who will tell you the global jihad is happening. You may not even see it now, but this was my next door neighbor, so it's happening. The leftists in this country, I know from what I see in the courtroom, they are trying to overturn the Constitution categorically. And that's going to directly affect you. If we don't do something about this, I currently pay about 32% of my income in taxes. If we don't fix this, and this means now, it is projected that when you're my age, you'll be paying between 80 and 85% of every dollar you make to the federal government. And I just want you, the next time you hold a dollar bill, because I'm into the visuals, you think about what 85% of that length of that bill going to government beast, and you only being able to control and enjoy the fruits of your labor from the 15%. So I want you to really think about that, because that's a reason to get involved. But my favorite last movie is, of course, the new Harry Potter, Harry Potter 7B, as my 10-year-old nephew calls it. And my absolute favorite part of that movie, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'm really not giving you a spoiler, I'm really not. But there's a great, in the very beginning of the movie, there's a tombstone that is shown. And it says, "Here lies Dobby, a free elf." And what I want to encourage all of you to do is to find your free elf and get involved and stay involved, because it's worth it. Thank you.